Imagine this. A house so quiet you can hear the clock tick, but no one's there to care what time it is. For 30 years, one man lived in that silence. No visitors, no phone calls, no birthdays, just him, his memories, and a world that seemed to forget he existed. His name was Thomas, but for decades no one spoke it, not out loud, not to his face. This is a story of how one unexpected moment, a single knock on his door, shattered that silence and brought him back to life. Stay with me, because what happens next will leave you speechless. It all began with a loss that broke him. Thomas was once a man full of life. He built radios in the army, fixed clocks with precision as a surgeon, and wrote poems that made his wife, Clara, blush. Clara was his everything, the kind of love you read about in books. They'd dance in their tiny kitchen to scratchy radio tunes, laughing over spilled flour. But one day, in a sterile hospital room, Clara slipped away. Cancer took her, leaving Thomas with nothing but the echo of her laugh and a scarf that still held her perfume. He was 42, and his world stopped turning. For a while, he tried to keep going. He joined a book club, but the chatter fell hollow. He sat on park benches, watching families rush by, but no one noticed a man with the sad eyes. He'd smile at cashiers, hoping for a kind word, but the world was too busy, too fast. It didn't have time for someone who paused to smell an old scarf, who carried a love that no one else could see. So Thomas gave up. He stopped leaving the house. He let the phone gather dust. The mailbox filled with junk, then nothing at all. His voice grew rusty from disuse. The curtain stayed closed. And just like that, 30 years slipped by. 30 years. Can you picture it? A life. So still it's like a photograph frozen in time. Thomas wasn't just alone. He was invisible. His house, once filled with Clara's humming, became a tomb of memories. He'd sit in his armchair, staring at the same wall, replaying moments with her. The way she'd tilt her head when she laughed. The way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear. He didn't know how to live without her, and no one was there to show him how. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into years. The world outside moved on, new cars, new music, new faces. But inside Thomas's house, time stood still. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, something extraordinary happened. A knock, sharp, hesitant, almost like a mistake. Thomas froze. No one knocked. No one ever did. For a moment, he thought he'd imagined it. But there was again, tap, tap, tap. His heart raced. He shuffled to the door, his hands trembling. What if it was a salesman? A neighbor complaining about his overgrown lawn? He opened the door just a crack, and there stood a boy, maybe 9 or 10, with messy hair and a crumpled piece of paper in his hand. "Sir," the boy said, his voice small but clear, "can you help me fix my bike?" Thomas blinked. He hadn't spoken to anyone in years. His throat felt like sandpaper. He wanted to close the door, to retreat to his silence. But the boy's eyes, wide, hopeful, held him there. Thomas nodded just once and stepped outside. The sunlight stung his eyes. The boy led him to a rusty bike in the driveway, its chain dangling like a broken promise. They worked in silence at first, Thomas's hands remembering how to move, how to fix. The boy watched, then started asking questions. "How'd you know how to do that? Were you like a mechanic or something?" Thomas's voice cracked as he answered, low and gravelly. I fixed radios once. Long time ago." The boy grinned, and something in Thomas stirred. Not a smile, not yet, but a flicker of something he'd forgotten. The boy came back the next day with another question about his bike. Then the day after that, with a story about school. And the day after that, with a question about why Thomas's house looked so old. They'd sit in the driveway, the boy cross-legged on the pavement, Thomas in an old lawn chair. The boy's name was Max, and he talked enough for both of them, about his dad, who worked late, about his favorite video games, about how he thought Thomas looked like someone who used to know things. And Max was right. Thomas didn't know things. He told Max about building radios in the army, about how you could hear voices from across the world if you tuned it just right. He showed him how to wind a clock so it ticked perfectly, He even recited a poem he'd written for Clara, his voice soft but steady. Max listened, wide-eyed, like Thomas was a hero from a storybook. And for the first time in decades, Thomas felt useful, needed, alive. Here's where the story takes a turn you won't see coming. One day, Max showed up with his mother, Sarah. She held a plate of cookies, still warm from the oven. "Max hasn't stopped talking about you," she said, her smile kind but cautious. Thomas froze. A stranger in his driveway was one thing. A stranger in his house? That was too much. But Max was already tugging at his sleeve, saying, "Come on, you gotta try these." So Thomas opened the door wider, and Sarah stepped inside. The house smelled of dust and time, but Sarah didn't flinch. She sat at his kitchen table, the same one where he and Clara used to dance, and they talked. About Max, about the neighborhood, about how Sarah's father used to fix things, too. That conversation was the first of many. Sarah started dropping by with Max, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with a question about a leaky faucet. Thomas started opening his curtains. He swept the porch. He even bought a new shirt, the first in years. The neighbors noticed. They waved. Some stopped to chat. And Thomas, slowly, started waving back. His voice grew stronger. His eyes grew brighter. He wasn't just fixing bikes or clocks anymore. He was fixing himself. Then, one evening, Max said something that changed everything. They were sitting in the driveway, the sun dipping low, when Max looked up and said, "I think my grandpa would have liked you. You feel like someone's grandpa." Thomas's breath caught. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Max didn't notice. He just kept talking about his bike. But those words sank deep. That night, alone in his kitchen, Thomas cried. Not just for Clara or the years he'd lost, but for the years he might still have. Tears of regret, tears of hope, tears of gratitude. Because a boy's simple words had given him something he thought was gone forever, a reason to keep going. This is the moment I want you to hold on to. Thomas's life didn't become perfect overnight. He still missed Clara. He still had quiet days. But in just 30 days, a knock, a single small moment, had become something huge. It wasn't just about fixing a bike. It was about fixing a life. And here's why this matters to you. Every one of us knows a Thomas. Someone who slipped through the cracks. Someone who's waiting for a knock, a call, a reason to open their curtains again. So, if this story hit you as hard as it hit me, do me a favor. Pause this video right now. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Tell me about someone in your life who needs a knock. Share this video with one person who might need to hear it. Because stories like this remind us, life isn't over until it's truly lived. Let's spread that message together. Thomas's story didn't end with that night in the kitchen. He started volunteering at a community center, teaching kids like Max how to fix things. He wrote more poems, some about Clara, some about new beginnings. His house wasn't silent anymore. It hummed with life. Neighbors dropped by. Max and Sarah became family. And Thomas, the man who once lived 30 years alone, learned something profound. You're never too broken to start again. All it takes is one moment, one knock, one person who sees you. So let me ask you this. Who's waiting for your knock? Reach out. Call that friend you haven't talked to in years. Check on that neighbor who's always alone. You never know whose life you might unlock with a single moment. And if you're loving stories like this, stories that remind us what it means to be human, subscribe to Senior Life Realities. Hit that bell so you never miss a video. Share this one with someone who needs it. Let's keep these stories alive together. Because Thomas's story isn't just his, it's ours too. And before you go, I want to invite you to be part of this chain of stories that transform. Have you lived or know a story of overcoming like Thomas's? A moment when life felt frozen, but something or someone brought hope back. We want to hear from you. Send your story to seniorliferealities@gmail.com. Right from the heart, because every word matters. Who knows? The next video could be about you, inspiring thousands of people. Share your journey. Connect with our community, and let's show together that no one is truly alone. We're waiting for your email.